This is Vincent Bess with Preaching and Teaching, and I just wanted to give you a little encounter of what just happened to me, a little account of an encounter that just happened to me in Washington, Missouri, involving Washington Police, Franklin County Narcotics Task Force, and the state of Missouri Police. Um, I was coming home from work today, was traveling down Highway 100, and I saw an unmarked police cruiser had a red car pulled over. And so I passed them up because it didn't register in my brain immediately that, hey, I need to get out and film this. But, anyways, I turned around, parked a good 200 yards away from the traffic scene, and started walking up there with my camera in hand. I didn't have any battery on my camera, so I didn't get a whole lot recorded except for an introduction and a little bit later, but I'll tell you about that. I started just holding my camera just to let the police officer know that he's being watched and to let the civilian know that he's being watched also. Not so much the civilian, more along the lines for the police officer. It's called cop watching. You can type it in on YouTube, just type cop watching, and you'll get multiple hits and multiple videos. And so I'm standing there for a good while, and I see way down 100, hundreds of yards away, I see more lights coming. And so I figured they was coming for me, and they were. It was, oh yeah, the guy who had made the traffic stop after having debate with the Washington cop that made an encounter with me. I come to find out was a Franklin County Narcotics Task Force officer in the unmarked cruiser. But anyways, a Washington police officer pulls up behind my vehicle and runs my tags without seeing me commit an offense. Guy comes walking the few hundred yards that I'd walked down to this traffic scene. And bear in mind, I was on the opposite side of a 4-lane highway on the other side of a guardrail. And so I was nowhere near this within range of any kind of threat or anything like that. At least you would think. Washington police officer walks up to me and says, "Hi, how are you doing today?" I said, "Hi, how are you doing?" He goes, "What are you doing?" I said, I'm videotaping this police encounter right here for the safety of the officer, for the safety of the individual involved. That's all, nothing more, nothing less." And he goes, "Well, we're out here because this guy thought it was a little odd, and we're out here for officer safety, like you said." And I said, I have no problem with that. And he asked, "Do you have your driver's license on you?" He actually asked, "Do you have any identification?" "Do you have any identification, citizen? Produce your identification immediately." Like Nazi Germany. Anyways, I said, "No, I don't have any ID on me." He says, "What's your last name?" I said, "Well, I'm not at liberty to say." "Oh, well, I need your ID or your last name." And I said, "No, the Supreme Court has already ruled, sir, that I do not have to produce any identification unless you have reasonable suspicion that I'm committing a crime and that I am detained." "Am I being detained?" "Well, at this point, yes." And I said, "Well, what's your reasonable suspicion and what crime are you reasonably suspecting me of committing?" And he couldn't give me an answer. And I said, "Well, since you can't give me an answer of what kind of crime I'm being suspected of, you can't detain me if I'm not being suspected, obviously." And he sits there and goes through the whole rigmarole with me and sits there and argues and whatnot. And I said, "Look, the Supreme Court has already decided on this. I would like a sergeant." And he calls on his radio, tries to get a sergeant out there. Sergeant never shows up. During the meantime, I see this Franklin County narcotics officer search the red car, and he didn't do an extensive search. It only took him just a minute. And searched the pockets of at least one of the occupants, the driver. I saw that. Anyways, after he had let him go, Franklin County narcotics officer walks up to me and... Actually, let me recap a little bit. He asked me for identification. I asked him if I was being detained. He said yes. And I asked him what crime I was being suspected of committing. He said none, so I said, therefore I'm not being detained if that's the case, and I would like to be free to go. And he goes, no. I said, am I free to go? He says, no, not at this point. I need to know who you are. He runs my license plate and whatnot and sends it through the system. And they come back, and he goes, well, I already know you're Mr. Best due to this. And I said, you suspect I'm Mr. Best. That's who the car is registered to. And he goes, well, you know and I know you're Mr. Best, blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, okay, whatever. I never said I was Mr. Best, but he knew who I was, and I knew he knew who I was. But, he calls the Franklin County narcotics officer over because I said, you know, I'd like to see a sergeant. And he goes, you want to talk with him? I said, yeah, I'd be more than willing to talk with him, just to let him know what's going on. And I told him the same thing. I'm out here for your safety. I'm out here for the citizens' safety, make sure nothing goes wrong. And he tells me, well, you have your hazard lights on your vehicle up there, so that's a sign of distress. Why don't you go get me your ID? And I said, he already told me I'm not being suspected of any crime, and I'm not being detained. So, are you suspecting me of a crime? He goes, no, but I saw you operating that motor vehicle. I need to see your driver's license. And I said, well, that's another whole nother issue. Missouri state law says you have to observe me committing a traffic offense in order to initiate a traffic stop. Did you observe me committing a traffic offense? Well, no, but you need to go get your ID. And he starts to walk away back to his car. I start to walk towards my vehicle, and I'm asking the Washington police officer, I said, do you really want to play these games with me? Because you know it's a game, and I know it's a game. You already said you know who I am. And so this is just a power game, right? You just want to, you know, I know what you're doing. If we want to bump this up to the next level, we can bump this up to the next level. I'll request state police. And he goes, state police is right back there. And when you know it, there was a state patrol car parked behind that Franklin County Narcotics Task Force officer. And state police comes over. I said, sir, this officer has informed me that I am not being suspected of a crime. He said he's not detaining me. That Franklin County actually, he didn't even tell me he was a Franklin County. The Washington officer wouldn't tell me. And I asked him, you know, what he's asking me for ID unlawfully. I didn't commit a traffic offense. I would like to be free to go. And I said, you're the ranking officer here. You are a state patrolman. Oh, I'm not ranking anything. I said, yes, sir, you are. You are the state police. You are the ranking officer on scene right now. So I am asking you, am I being suspected of a crime? And if not, am I free to go? And did you see me commit a traffic offense? He already said he didn't. So, am I free to go? Well, technically, if he didn't see you commit a traffic offense, you don't have to produce a driver's license. So, yes, you're free to go. I said, thank you very much. I am going to leave now. And as I jumped in my car and drove off, I could see them just sitting there scratching their head, all three of them talking to one another. Look, guy, lawyer. That's what he asked me. Are you a lawyer? Because I kept quoting, you know, case law and whatnot and state law, and really just ridiculous. I asked the Washington cop. I said, "This is America, right?" "Oh yeah, this is America." I said, "This is not Nazi Germany, right?" "Yeah, that's right." "Oh, but we've had shootings. Innocent until proven guilty. Does that come up in anybody's vocabulary?" Not so much in America anymore, folks. But I just wanted to share that with you guys. I might add some details in a further video, but I think I covered it pretty well. I got a couple of snippets of video that I'll try and upload, but until then, keep on cop watching, listen to preaching and teaching, and hopefully we'll see you next Saturday, or hopefully even before then. I'll try and get those videos up.